A while ago when T.I's son King was getting a lot of flack and a lot of heat in the media, that to me he just looked like a young kid that wanted to prove to his father that he was a man too.
I know you. I know you. I know you.
Shut up. Shut up.
I know you.
Ain't no mystery about him.
I know you though. I know you though.
Shut up.
I know you.
Think I ain't spoke to my son. Think I ain't told my son, his mama, and his grandmamas. He's going to prison.
Today's chaos? King Harris's life just spun out of control, and the fallout is shaking his entire family to the core. King's legal problems already had the streets buzzing, but then, boom! Tiny dropped divorce papers on T.I, and the timing couldn't have been worse. She couldn't take it anymore, especially after rumors spread that T.I straight up disowned King following his latest arrest. Can you imagine the headlines? What's shocking is that T.I isn't even trying to stop the divorce or fix things. He's not fighting for his marriage, not defending his son, nothing. The silence is so loud that people close to them are whispering that the family is crumbling from the inside. Now, relatives and friends are pointing fingers, and the house is divided. Who's really to blame for this mess? The parents, who gave King luxury, fame, and endless opportunities, or King himself, who threw it all away chasing a so-called gangster lifestyle. Tiny and T.I splitting might look like a bombshell, but let's be real. Cracks had been showing for years. They survived cheating rumors, reality TV drama, and public arguments. But October 2024? That was the final straw. King's reckless arrest didn't just put him under the spotlight. It dragged the entire Harris clan into the fire, exposing everything they'd tried to keep behind closed doors. And trust me, this is only the beginning. King Harris thought he was just making another reckless exit from a gas station in his flashy BMW, but this time, he nearly smashed into a police car, and that single moment flipped his whole world upside down. The timing couldn't have been worse, because when the cops pulled him over, what they discovered sent his troubles spiraling out of control. As soon as the officers approached, the smell of weed hit them instantly. No denying it, no excuses, the car reeked. And then came the bombshell. They spotted a gun tucked right into King's waistband. In that split second, things went from bad to disastrous. The cops took the weapon, slapped cuffs on him, and you'd think that was bad enough. But when they ran his name, that's when it turned into a full-blown nightmare. King wasn't just another kid caught slipping, he already had a history. An outstanding warrant dating back to 2022 popped up like a ghost from the past. Overspeeding, driving on a suspended license, and even a DUI. It was like all his worst mistakes came back to haunt him in one crushing moment. What's wild is that King could have slipped away if he had just chilled out that day. But no, he played right into it, and once the arrest footage leaked online, the internet roasted him without mercy. People dragged him, laughed at him, and called him out for being reckless and entitled. The one thing nobody missed, though, was King's face in that viral 30-minute video. This wasn't his usual cocky act. This time, you could see it plain as day. Regret. Reality finally hit him hard. For the first time, he looked like he knew the game was over, and the only way to save himself was to cooperate. And let's be real, for someone like King, swallowing that pride must have been the hardest thing he's ever done. We've all seen King wild out in public, acting loud and reckless like nothing can touch him. But this viral arrest video, it showed a completely different side. Gone was the cocky attitude, gone was the tough guy act. This time, King was calm, collected, and shockingly respectful. Even the arresting officer admitted he was impressed by how cool King stayed through the chaos. But let's be real, good behavior wasn't going to erase the charges. He still landed in DeKalb County Jail before being moved to Pickens County once the warrant got recalled. When that footage hit the internet, fans lit up the comments like wildfire. One person went viral calling him a trust fund prison punk, and people couldn't stop laughing. Another blasted him, saying, "He thinks his parents' money can save him, yet he wants to act like he comes from nothing." The criticism was brutal, and for once, nobody was buying into the image King tried to sell online. But here's where it gets even messier. King wasn't the only one paying the price. His downfall cut straight into his parents' marriage, ripping those long-standing cracks wide open. T.I tried to put on the face of the heartbroken dad, but Tiny wasn't having it. She was furious, and when she filed for divorce, she didn't hold back. In black and white, she listed King's reckless spiral as the final straw that broke her down. She basically said, "This is why I'm done." And the most shocking part? T.I didn't even fight it. No pushback, no public defense, nothing. He stood back, like a man who had washed his hands clean, claiming he had done all he could as a father. And if King refused to listen, then the blame was all on him. The silence spoke louder than words, and it left the world wondering, was T.I protecting his peace or abandoning his son when things got ugly? As harsh as it sounds, the truth is this. T.I saw King's spiral coming years before it exploded. Back in 2022, when King first started going viral for his wild antics, T.I went online and begged him to slow down. He didn't sugarcoat it either. He straight up warned that King was speeding toward disaster, and if he didn't get it together, jail was waiting. He even admitted that he'd been telling Tiny and King's grandmother the same thing, urging them to keep an eye on him before it was too late. And T.I wasn't just talking from a place of authority as a rap legend, he was speaking from experience. He knew the cost of the streets, he knew the pain of handcuffs, and he didn't want his son to follow that same dark road. But here's the twist. Tiny wasn't buying it at all. Instead of siding with him, she flipped those warnings into ammunition for the divorce. In her filings, she painted T.I as the absent father who failed to step up when it mattered most. Her claim? If he had been more present, more firm, and less focused on his own world, King wouldn't have strayed so far from the light. And here's where her words cut deep. She wasn't completely wrong. The timeline doesn't lie. T.I was in and out of prison from the very moment Tiny found out she was pregnant with King. By the time he finally got out for good, King was already used to living without a consistent father figure. And even when T.I was free, his presence didn't bring much stability. The rumors say he often shipped King off to his grandmother's house, leaving the boy to grow up under someone else's roof instead of his own father's guidance. That pattern of absence, mixed with King's craving for attention, might just explain why the young man kept chasing chaos instead of structure. King once admitted something that shocked fans. Despite his parents being rich and famous, he didn't actually grow up surrounded by luxury. Most of his childhood was spent living with his grandmother, not under T.I and Tiny's roof. And get this, the only times he was really invited back into his parents' home was when the cameras were rolling for their reality TV show. Imagine that. Your family mansion is basically off limits unless it's time to play perfect for the world to see. With that kind of unstable home setup, it's no surprise King went looking for attention and distractions on the outside. Every stunt he pulled seemed bigger, louder, and messier, like he was trying to fill a gap that money and fame couldn't fix. And then came the infamous Waffle House meltdown in 2022, the moment fans knew things were spiraling out of control. All it took was a worker accidentally putting pickles on his food when he didn't want them. Instead of brushing it off, King exploded into a screaming match, berating the employee while recording the whole scene himself. He proudly posted it online, but instead of making him look hard, it made him look entitled, spoiled, and completely out of touch. Fans dragged him relentlessly, and the criticism hit T.I. hard. People were questioning why he was letting his son run wild with no boundaries. So when T.I. made that public video warning King about the dangerous path he was on, Tiny's anger boiled over. She snapped, saying those lectures should have happened years earlier, when it might have made a difference. To her, the warning came way too late. It was like trying to lock the door after the house had already been robbed. For a brief moment, things cooled down between them, but T.I.'s disappointment couldn't stay hidden forever. That tension finally exploded in public at an Atlanta Falcons game, where father and son got into a heated argument that quickly turned physical. Fans in the stands were stunned. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was playing out like a public soap opera for the whole city to witness. The blow-up that night started over King claiming he didn't grow up with privilege, a statement that instantly set T.I. off. He jumped in fast, reminding his son that he had every advantage possible, that he literally grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. But King wasn't having it. He fired back, and before anyone knew it, fists were flying. Father and son clashed right there in the middle of the crowd, and the cameras caught it all. The clip showed a fight so raw it almost didn't look like family. It looked like T.I. was ready to square up with King like he was just another man on the street. Fans were stunned, but the internet blew up with reactions. Within hours, the video had thousands of likes and endless commentary. Some people even praised T.I. for putting his son in check, saying he should have busted his behind a long time ago. Others compared King to an overdue library book, left unchecked for too long, bound to cause problems later. One comment summed it up perfectly. King's been out of control. Pray for their family. But while the internet was cheering T.I. on, Tiny was fuming. She didn't see discipline, she saw humiliation. To her, T.I. went way too far by embarrassing their son in public like that. And the situation only got uglier when she got home and learned that T.I. had kicked King out of the house completely. He told King to figure out life on his own, to sink or swim without his family's safety net. For Tiny, that was the final straw. She felt I wasn't just being strict, he was being cruel, cutting their son off when he needed guidance the most. That move drove a wedge so deep between them that it cracked their marriage wide open, and from there, the road to divorce was already set in stone. Another bombshell Tiny dropped in those divorce papers: T.I.'s constant cheating and violent past. For years, she stood by while he stepped out on their marriage, only for him to spin the story and act like he was changing. But those lies piled higher and higher, and by the time King spiraled into his own chaos, Tiny wasn't just furious with her son. She was looking dead at the man who raised him. To her, the cycle had never been broken, and King was simply living out the same destructive path that T.I. once wore like a badge of honor. That's why Tiny finally cut him off. What truly shattered her was realizing King wasn't carving out his own lane. He was copying his father's blueprint. The same jail stints that built T.I.'s tough guy reputation, that's exactly what King was chasing. So when T.I. disowned King after the arrest, Tiny snapped. In her eyes, he wasn't rejecting his son. He was rejecting his own reflection. That's the level of pain that pushed those divorce papers across the table. And if you watch King closely, you can see just how desperate he is for his father's approval. Why else is he always flashing guns, flexing online, and moving reckless? After the arrest footage went viral, the internet had a field day with speculation. Some said King deliberately walked into that situation just to get jail time and stamp himself as real. Others swore he finally earned the rugged street title he'd been chasing for years. And then there were the ones pointing out the obvious, that every antic, Every outburst was a twisted performance just to grab T.I.'s attention. It seemed to be working too. Remember when T.I and Boozy had to check their sons on camera? That moment showed the world exactly how messy things had gotten. Sons mimicking fathers, fathers clashing with sons, and everyone battling for dominance in front of millions of eyes. King and Boozy's son, Tootie Raw, thought they were filming a music video. But instead of focusing on bars and visuals, they turned it into a gun show. Flashing weapons left and right like they were in some trap house fantasy, they looked more like they were chasing street points than building music careers. That's when the dads stepped in. You could hear the disappointment dripping from T.Y.'s voice as he confronted King, demanding to know why he was so obsessed with looking tough when there were women around. What started as a check turned into a full-on lecture. T.I. didn't mince words. He told them straight up that one wrong move with those guns, or getting caught with anything illegal, could ruin their lives forever. Both he and Boozy were dead serious, and you can see it clear as day on the footage. This wasn't entertainment. This was fathers begging their sons not to throw it all away. On the surface, it looked like T.I was genuinely trying to steer King away from disaster, but Tiny wasn't impressed one bit. In fact, she was furious. Not because she approved of King flexing guns, but because she hated that T.I aired their son's business out in front of the world. To her, it felt like another example of him being too little, too late. After all, King was only copying the same reckless behavior he'd watched his father glorify for years. But the moment that finally made Tiny snap came later, with King's baby mama drama. When T.I went on a podcast and casually announced that he was about to be a grandfather again because King was having a child, Tiny nearly lost it. To her, it sounded like T.I was celebrating King's reckless choices instead of condemning them. In her mind, it wasn't just irresponsible. It was like he was endorsing the very behavior that was tearing their family apart. The situation with King's baby mama was strange from the jump. Rumors spread fast that Big Nana, King's child's mother, was much older than him. Whispers online claimed she only got with him to secure the bag, while King was too young and reckless to see the trap. But did King care? Not at all. He was hyped, loud, and proud about the whole thing, stepping into fatherhood with full force like nothing else mattered. When their son was born in November 2024, King was over the moon. He bragged non-stop on social media, posting every little moment like a proud dad who had something to prove. He even dropped a track called Dear Son, rapping about stepping up as a father. The post was captioned with a bold message, November 5th, 8:09 a.m. Welcome King Jr. Time to take over. For a brief moment, it almost looked like fatherhood had grounded him, that maybe, just maybe, King was ready to grow up and calm down. For Tiny, that was the silver lining she'd been praying for. She finally saw King doing what T.I failed to do when he was young, being present, being hands-on, breaking the cycle. But just as hope started to rise, the internet dragged it all back down. While King was online playing Proud Dad, his viral arrest footage was making the rounds again, reminding the world that trouble was still lurking behind his smile. I tried to play the supportive father, but he couldn't keep his disappointment hidden for long. Deep down, he was ashamed enough that he didn't even want to live under the same roof with his own son. And for Tiny, that was unforgivable. She could have looked past the cheating, the lies, even the fights. But watching T.I turn his back on King when he needed love the most, that broke her heart beyond repair. So when those divorce papers hit the table, it wasn't a shock, it was inevitable. The final nail in a marriage that had been splitting apart for years. And Tiny made it clear, she's done covering, done hiding, done protecting T.I's image. The only mystery now is this: what does T.I do next? If he stays silent with Tiny the way he stayed silent with King, then this family might already be finished forever. And if you don't want to miss how this plays out, hit that subscribe button right now and stay locked into Juicy Reel. We've got more explosive updates coming your way.